Good morning. We want to welcome you to this podcast. And the question is this morning is sports. We're talking all things sports here with WSFA's Rosie Langiello. She is the sports director at WSFA. Thank you for joining the podcast this morning.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I love that music.
Listen, I would introduce you right now, but listen, you so star-studded. We gonna listen. You bring the best last. You know, when you go to a concert, they have some local acts on first. Man, your star is shining so bright. We're gonna move that to the end to introduce you. Okay.
Love it.
Listen, what I want to talk about first segment is just playoff for play on.
Yeah.
We're dealing with this situation right now as far as the playoff system. We thought, hey, great, they're expanding it to 12. Now we're at 12, and there's equally as much confusion right now as it was when it was just 4.
Yeah. They got to expand it to 16. I think we need to go a little bit bigger. I like the 12-team playoff format. I was so excited that they expanded it from 4. I just think 4 is absolutely ridiculous. But now that with the tiebreakers and all the confusion, I think you need to expand it a little more. I also think there's a lot of teams from that 20 to 16, even 16 to 12 that are really deserving. And I think that's kind of the problem that the committee is running into is like, well, who's more deserving and who has the history and the merit and the brand, right? And that's something that Alabama has always had, and we can get into if they deserve it or not, but I think the committee is just having a hard time depicting like, okay, well, these guys have been playing really well in the first half of the season. Now they're not playing that well, but let's still rank them up there. And then there's some teams that are playing really well in the back end of the season, like South Carolina. And where do we rank them? Are they going to make the playoff? Expanded to 16, I think you make it a lot better and a lot more easier and a lot less confusing.
I think one of the biggest issues that we're dealing with is, as a football fan, as a football purist who played the game, we want to see good football.
Right.
What we don't want to see is some of these teams that may not have the cachet who get on the big stage and they shrink.
Yeah.
So then you got a 60-3 game that nobody wanted to watch.
Right.
So the question becomes then the 12 is it a right format? Is it a flawed format? But if we get to 16, do you think that'll solve it? Because it seems like teams in the SEC are going to be penalized regardless.
Yeah, well, I also think that money plays a huge part in this all, right? And the SEC generates so much money. But like you said, if you're a football purist, you want to see the best football. You personally don't care about the money, but the networks and the commissioners and everybody else that runs TV, they care about the money. So it'll be interesting on Sunday to see how many SEC teams make it in this 12-team format. I'll say that it is flawed because we have run into this issue. I don't want to get going with the NIL things just yet, but there is an issue with NIL, but there's also talent everywhere now because these schools can pay these players who have really top-tier talent. So we're just seeing a lot of these teams a lot better than we thought they were going to be this season that deserve a spot over maybe Alabama, maybe an Ole Miss, maybe even a Georgia at some point too.
So when we look at it though, and you see a Vanderbilt beat an Alabama,
Yeah.
that's not your grandfather's Vanderbilt who beat Alabama.
Right.
The transfer portal, they got kids now who now parity as far as college football is concerned. It is pervasive. So you will have a Vanderbilt that pops up. You'll have an SMU that I think got 20 transfers on their team.
But it's working for these teams.
It's working for them.
It is working. And it's interesting to see, especially Vanderbilt, too. I mean, they've had a better season than anyone thought they were going to have. They beat Alabama. Even Oklahoma when they beat Alabama as well. I mean, they have talent, too. Everybody has talent now. So it's harder for coaches. It's harder for, these recruiting personnel to really lock down talent because it all bundles down to money.
But when we look at, like, from an electoral standpoint, when you have a base of voters who are knowledgeable, they vote differently. You go around, you talk to coaches, you see teams, you watch film, you watch the product on the field, right?
Yeah.
And so what would you say to fans who are losing their minds because an Alabama will lose to an Oklahoma or they'll lose to a Vanderbilt? Listen, college football has just caught up from the standpoint that everybody got good players now.
Well, I think that the NIL, there needs to be some type of like formal instruction. There needs to be some, I don't know, standards, rules, really. There just needs to be rules, right? But I also think that fans need to realize that players are different now. Money rules all. And there is a lot of talent. There is a lot of athletes. And they're bigger, they're better, they're stronger. And it keeps progressing every single year. So get ready, because college football is going to be different moving forward. I got into college football in 2017, 2018, I started covering it, right? And it has changed so much since then, especially with NIL and transfer portal. But I think the transfer portal also needs rules as well. But I would say to fans, embrace the change, but I understand your frustration because we see it too. The commissioners and people that run the NCAA, if they ever make rules, they need to make them very, very soon.
My question for you is, and the question is this morning, how awesome has it been for you coming from Pennsylvania to cover the SEC?
Oh my gosh, it's been so cool. I said when I was up north, I was covering Penn State. Big Ten is awesome. Love the Big Ten. But I was like, I think I want to go down south and cover the SEC. You know what I mean? My love for college football was very, very late into the game. And so I went away from it. And then I was like, I miss college football. I was covering the pros for a little bit, and I was like, I want to get back into college football. I want to go down south. I want to build some roots in the SEC. Came down, did it, and it is freaking awesome. Like, I could stay here forever. I mean, who gets to cover Auburn and like 2 SEC teams? That's incredible.
I agree.
It's incredible.
I agree. Listen, you can tell right now she's on fire. This is the way she all gas, no breaks, all the time. So when we come back, what I want to deal with is not only covering the SEC, but also you had the opportunity to be in the right place at the right time for what a lot of people would say the worst thing that has happened to Alabama football. And we're going to talk about Saban's retirement when we come back. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a second. Life can be difficult. If you're looking for an escape or you need a vacation, we want to suggest S&S Elite Travel. At S&S Elite Travel, they are committed to delivering the exceptional vacation experience you deserve. Their passion for travel and expertise ensures every detail is perfectly planned. You can find them at hashtag travel with SNS. Once again, that's SNS Elite Travel. All right, and we're back. Rosie, we were just talking about the playoffs. Mm-hmm. You mentioned a little bit about the NIL,
Yeah.
but you were in the right place at the right time for what some would call the worst thing that has happened to Alabama football since Bear Bryant died.
Yeah.
And that would be Nick Saban retiring.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about when you got the call. Where were you when you got the call?
It was a random Wednesday afternoon. And I was just sitting at my computer. I don't come into work with my makeup on. I never do it. And at lesson learned, I should have. So I'm just sitting there putting together my show. I actually finished my show at like 3:30 that day, okay?
Right.
Because I just had nothing to run but basketball stuff. And one of our digital producers came over to me and he was like, hey, I just like briefly saw something about Nick Saban retiring. And I looked at him and I said, what? And I hit my home fresh on my Twitter, and Chris Lowe from ESPN was like, Nick Saban is retiring. And I stood up in our newsroom and I said, it's happening! It's happening! Like, I said it like I was in The Office. You know that scene in The Office where they're like, it's happening! That was me. That was me. And everyone was like, what's happening? You know what I mean? They're like, what? I do that on a regular basis. So people were kind of just like, and then I was like, Nick Saban is retiring. And it just felt like everyone was like, what? And so I just sat down, threw on my makeup. I think I was typing and putting on foundation at the same time, okay? I think the news broke at like 3:55. Threw on my jacket. I don't know what makeup I was wearing. No lipstick, no mascara. Wrote something up for like the 4:30. I think actually we got it, excuse me, I think we got it before that. I think it was like 4:25 we got it on. And I just ran out there, and I think Mark Bullock and Rosanna was on the desk maybe, or Sally, and I was just like, guys, he retired. I was so real with the viewers. I was like, I'm shocked. Like, I can't really believe it. I think we kind of felt like maybe we had another year. Yeah. But in that moment, I was just like, whoa, my next 3 days are going to be absolutely insane. And poor Jamal, he was off that day. And then for the next 3 days, he was in Tuscaloosa. Yeah. He went back to Tuscaloosa 3 days in a row. God bless him. But I mean, there was just so much to do for both of us on both ends. But wow, will I never forget that day.
Normally there's a leak, But
Yeah.
when it came, he was very buttoned up about it, and actually was still in the office. Saban was working.
Yeah.
He was doing all of the things, but he had conversations clearly.
Yeah.
And just, Miss Terry and him made a decision,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it breaks.
Yeah, it breaks, and it was insane for all of us Alabama people. It was insane for the entire country, right? Like I part of the reason why I came down here was to cover Nick Saban because I knew how legendary of a coach he was, and I wanted to listen to him in press conferences. I wanted to ask him questions. I wanted to just listen to a football genius, and I was pretty upset about it from a journalism standpoint because I was like, I feel like I've learned a lot about football just listening to him talk about football, and I've actually learned a lot from him talking on game day too. But just covering him in person is something that I will never take for granted. That was incredibly awesome. I mean, I've covered pretty big time coaches, but I would say Nick Saban is the biggest.
One of the things that I looked at and identified with was him saying we have gotten into a space now as far as NIL, where he was talking to Miss Terry, and one of the first things that happen now is not the contribution of a kid. How can I help the program?
It's how much can
will
you
gonna
pay me?
How much gonna pay me?
Isn't that sad?
It
I mean,
is.
he said that. I mean, he has gone on record and said that. So it's awful, right? But listen, these kids have to make money too. And I agree that they put in their heart and their soul, and I think that they should be paid. In my opinion, I think that they should be paid. However, do we need to be giving hundreds and thousands and millions of dollars to these young kids? I don't know how much it should be, but I do know that they put their bodies on the line, their mental health on the line, just so that we can watch football. I mean, there just has to be some type of agreement here and there with how much they can make and they should be making. You know what I mean?
I think there are layers. I think there are tiers to this, because let me give you my case study and ride with me on this. Auburn fans, Bo Jackson, number 34, iconic figure. Okay, number 34 jersey, number 7 jersey at Auburn. I think it's like that's Pat Sullivan. Number 88 may have been Beasley. Okay, 2010. There's a young whippersnapper who comes into Auburn University named Cam Newton. Okay, he puts on number 2. In that year, the highest grossing jersey was number 2. Number 2 jersey had never grossed at all at Auburn University.
Yeah.
That kid deserves an NIL deal.
Yeah, he did.
But we're giving them out like Oprah Winfrey. You get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car.
Yep.
Something
Still like
has
that.
to be done.
Yeah, I agree. There just needs to be some rules and regulation on it, right? I mean, when you're that young and you don't have an agent of some sort, I mean, I would spend the money. I would do stupid stuff with the money. If I'm 17 and I have all that money, 18 years old, yeah, I'm going to do some dumb stuff. But yeah, you're right. Cam Newton deserved that. Now, was Cam Newton getting paid some way, somehow? I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. But things happened then, obviously. And times are different now. And it's a shame that those players back in the day weren't compensated for their actions and their willingness to put everything on the line for people to watch football.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. But I think at some point something has to be done. Listen, when we come back, I want to talk about in this next segment what we're going to call the flip-flop. Okay. We understand the state of Alabama is a football state.
Love it.
But there is something very unique that's happening in the state of Alabama that everyone is having to take notice of, and we're going to talk about that when we come back. Y'all stay tuned. Our title sponsor is Press Play Media Group. Press Play Media Group, their focus is media consulting and content generation with a passion for videography and marketing. They would love to add you to their portfolio of clients with over 30 years of experience in the fast-paced media arena. Help Press Play Media grow your business identification. Once again, Press Play Media Group. You can find them at www.pressplaymedia.org. And we're back. Rosie, we've talked NIL, we've talked Saban's retirement.
Yep.
One of the things that I want to talk about is what we're going to call the flip-flop. Alabama is a football state through and through. We don't have a pro team, but we have Alabama and we have Auburn football. But there's something very unique that's happening under the current, and it's bubbled up now, and I think it's larger or equally as large and competing for the headlines is Auburn basketball and Alabama basketball, what Bruce Pearl has done at Auburn and what Nate Oates has done at Alabama.
It's incredible, both of them.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I obviously haven't been around for too long. I've been around here since 2022, but I think from when I've been here, they just keep getting better and better. And the players that come to both of these schools have been getting better and better. It's been a lot of fun to see. It's been a lot of fun as a journalist covering both of them. But I think they've each brought a lot to these programs. So much that we're like, is this a basketball state now? You know what I mean? And I truly don't think it is truly a basketball state. I think this state was run by football, always football all over the board. But man, is basketball getting close up there, and it's been a lot of fun to see.
And when you give a person an inch, they're able to move monumentally.
Yeah.
What happens is because it's kind of been an off Alabama football year. Auburn is still in flux. It's trying to figure out their identity.
Yeah.
Has given a pathway for both Bruce Pearl basketball and Nate Oates basketball to now fill that space.
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, for fans especially, yeah. But I think people at Auburn, they were definitely done with the football season. They're like, it's time for basketball. I mean, I don't blame him. But Bruce Pearl really runs that place, right? But he's brought a lot of energy. He's brought a lot of wins to the Auburn basketball program in I think it's 11 years that he's been there. So people are clinging on to that, and they're hoping. And both of these teams have made the tournament since I've been here, since 2022, each season. Like, you can guarantee that these guys are going to be in the tournament at the very start of the season just because of the talent that Bruce and Nate has brought in.
I think the other thing is that they're using the same mechanism that football is using.
Yeah.
Because the transfer portal is working very well for them.
Oh, it's working so well for them, right? Like Chaney Johnson, we were just talking about him, bringing him in, and he's gotten, I think, so much better from the first year he was on the team last year until this year, too. Denver Jones as well. It's been a lot of fun to watch both of the coaches go into the transfer portal. And that has a lot to do with their staff too. Like, their staff is watching the transfer portal and seeing like which big caliber talent players do we need, what big man is in there that we could grab that, can help us in the paint and score a lot of points. And I think both staffs have done an exceptionally well job for it.
Let me tell you what shocked me. Generally, when I think about, going shopping for talent. Yeah. When we look at, I think it's Chaney Johnson.
Yep.
Okay. And they were talking about how he came in and just meshed, and he's off the charts, right? And I'm thinking like he came from like a Villanova, or he came from somewhere big or whatever. And it was like University of Alabama, Huntsville.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, huh?
Yeah. I know. Well, that's one of those things that goes back to the staff. They're watching these players at other schools and seeing what they could do for each school, and they're like, no, this guy is great. We need him on an SEC team because we think that he can play up to the level of talent that the SEC brings and the Big East teams and all of the other conferences. And that just, like I said, goes back to their staff watching and waiting for these guys to enter the portal.
As you look into your crystal ball, right now, Auburn's number 2 just came off.
Yep.
A loss to Duke. Alabama's number 9 just came off a win against North Carolina. As you look into your crystal ball, Sweet 16, Elite 8,
oh man,
Final 4, National Championship.
I think each of these teams could go to the Final Four. Really, they could. With covering Alabama last year, going to the Final Four was insane. Like, they were very good. I don't know if people expected them to go that far, but the dominoes fell where they needed to fall, and Alabama made it there. And they were so talented too. I mean, they still are. But for Auburn as well, I mean, I was shocked when they left the first round and got beat by Yale, but they had the talent on that team. But I actually think this team is better. I could see both of these teams making it to the Final Four. But when you look at the NCAA tournament, you need to look at the path for both teams, right? And the past 2 seasons, they've been in the same first round spot, which lucky for us, that's great. It was Birmingham and Spokane. But then you have to look at the path that each team has to get to. And if someone loses and someone wins, it's all about getting hot and then the path as well. But if dominoes fall, like they did for Alabama last year, you make it to the Final Four.
But that's something that a lot of people don't understand, the get hot part, because the difference between what we were talking about, the 12-team playoff of football, as opposed to 64 with basketball, man, if you get hot and you get on a run, I mean, you can go.
You can go, yeah. And I feel like, I mean, Alabama did that last year, but I think it was the Sweet 16. Did Clemson lose? No. I forget who lost. Honestly, that whole trip was a blur, but it was a lot of fun. Someone lost, and I can't remember who, but I was like, well, that's big for Alabama. And then they just kept winning, and then they punched a ticket to the Final Four. But they were really good, too. Like, they were down. I think it was the Sweet 16 game against, why can't I remember the team? Anyway, they were down and then they came back and won the game. And I'm just sitting on my chair like, oh my gosh, like they're really good, but they got hot at the right time. They clicked. They really, really clicked and meshed well together when they needed to.
I love Bruce Pearl from the standpoint, and Nate also, because what happens is you get to a point where subsequently your coach is going to have to win a game, whether that's X's and O's or whether that's energy.
Yeah, I mean, they both bring a lot of energy, right? Both of them do. They have great basketball backgrounds, and I think that they have the resume, obviously, to coach all these players and get them to the next level, which they have both produced a lot of talent, a lot of NBA talent.
Great. Now, listen, we've covered a lot of ground. In this next segment coming up, we got to talk about this historic hire that WSFA had when we recruited you and got you out of the transfer portal.
Thank God you did. Okay.
So
Thank God.
when we come back, we're going to talk about your historic hire and what you've meant to the central Alabama area as from a sports standpoint, and how great of a job that you're doing in everything that you're doing. Stay with us. We'll be back in a second. Life can be difficult. If you're looking for an escape or you need a vacation, we want to suggest S&S Elite Travel. At S&S Elite Travel, they are committed to delivering the exceptional vacation experience you deserve. Their passion for travel and expertise ensures every detail is perfectly planned. You can find them at hashtag travel with SNS. Once again, that's SNS Elite Travel. Listen, welcome back. Welcome back. We're putting up fours, not fourth quarter, but this is the fourth segment. Listen, we got to deal with the historic hire that WSFA accomplished in 2022. We can't ignore the 800-pound elephant in the room. You joined WSFA in 2022.
Yeah.
Where did you come from?
I was in Rhode Island at the time working as a reporter, but I'm from Pennsylvania.
I hear you.
But yeah, I was in Rhode Island for about a year and a half before I came down here.
Joined us in 2022, first female.
Yeah, I had no clue.
First female sports director in WSFA's history.
Yeah, well, I didn't know anything about WSFA when I got down here. And Scott Duff, our former news director, rest in peace, he put it on an email after I signed like the offer letter. And I think he did it for a reason, and I love him for this. But in the email, he was like, oh, and she is our first female sports director. And I was like sitting at my computer in Providence. I was probably, I was having a bad day. I remember that day. But then he sent that email and I was like, what? Wow, nice. Okay, cool. I just kept it moving because I didn't know the legacy that WSFA was. I'm not from the South. I've never been here. I didn't even know where Montgomery, Alabama was when I got down here. Okay. Right. So I was just like, all right, cool. Yeah. All right. And then I got down here. I was like, oh my God. There's a lot of pressure right here.
There are so many questions I have that we're not going to be able to cover in this segment, like perceptions that you had of Alabama, food, all of that.
The food.
Yes.
Food, yeah.
So one of the things that I always joke with you about, this girl is all gas.
Yeah.
No breaks.
A lot of coffee.
I mean, and she comes in like a whirlwind. Meteorologists don't talk about you, but you come in like a storm.
Yep.
And the whole. What's been the biggest challenge of you being the first female sports director in what some would say may be a male-dominated arena?
I wouldn't say it has to deal with me being a woman. I think for me, the biggest challenge here has been trying to cover everything that we have to cover. Our DMA is ginormous, and I did not know that when I got down here. I mean, we cover over 100 high schools. We have 7 colleges and then everything in between, right? So I think that's been my biggest focus. I haven't focused on like, yeah, I'm the first female sports director. Like, that's so cool. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm very, very honored by that. But my focus coming down here was like, okay, make sure I cover everything that needs to be covered. And I feel like each year I'm covering more and more. And I'm still learning about high schools that are in our DMA that I had no idea because there's so many. Like, if you draw our circle with our DMA, it's ginormous. So my biggest challenge was making sure that I was hitting everything, meeting everyone, making sure that I was covering the stories that people want to see.
One of the things that when we talk about the word fanatical, the root word of fanatical is fan. A lot of times we associate that with Auburn and Alabama. We got some fanatical fans as far as high school is concerned as
Oh, it's
well.
awesome.
You know,
Yeah.
because it's such a football state. We were talking
Yeah.
about that earlier. Talk a little bit about the fact of Friday night fever is
awesome.
it's a problem within itself.
It's a legendary show. It's so cool. I love that Jeff Shearer was, the establisher of everything, and it's grown and grown and grown, and now it's blossomed into this. We have a two-person anchor show now, which I was really adamant on when I got here. I mean, that's great. I love that you guys did a one-anchor show, but I've always done a two-anchor show, and I think that my weekend sports person does so much, and they really work hard. And I just feel like it's kind of a reward to sit there and anchor with me, and it's a lot more fun too. But I think that's how I evolved it. I can't even imagine what the next person is going to do, right? Like, it keeps growing, and people love the Fever. Wow. When I go out, I mean, they don't even call me by my name. They're just like, Fever. And I'm like, Fever? Yeah, Fever. No, I love that. And I love that. Trust me. People are like, it's Fever. And I'm like, Fever. But I love it. I love the accents. Are my favorite thing about living in the South. But people will literally just scream that at me. And I'm like, cool. Like, I love that you watch. It's such a loved show.
What I love about you is the fact that you dance to your own beat.
Yeah.
You know, the stage wasn't too big. It's real easy to come in and it's like, I'm not going to do anything, but you've brought your own essence to Friday Night Fever. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you wanted to get accomplished now that it's under your tutelage.
Well, I think the two anchor show was definitely a part of it. And then what I still want to get accomplished is kind of blowing Fever up in the postseason too, and putting the resources that we do into the regular season as well. And I know it kind of hits the holidays, and there's a lot of things that go behind the scene that people don't know. But one day I hope that we could have like a live desk at the championship game when our teams are in it. That would be so cool. But I do think that we're getting, a little bit further each year with more that we're doing with the Fever, the Iron Bowl show, just things in general. Like, I have ideas. It's just we need a little more resource and a little more time to execute them, and maybe another person in the sports department. You never know. That'd be great.
And two, there are people who sometimes, let's be honest, try and put you in a box because you are a female. Mm-hmm. You still rocking your pumps. Mm-hmm. You wearing your outfits. Yep. You do things, and people may write in and ask, how do you deal with the social media aspect of it, of people wanting to put you in a box?
I give it right back to them. You're going to dish it out, I'm going to put you right back in your place. And I think, our managers, they've never said anything to me. I've always been very nice and professional, but listen, I think that if you want to write in and you're not doing anything at home and you just kind of want to ruin my day, you can, but I'm going to write back and be like, hey, that wasn't nice. I was told that the South is a very nice place. Let's act like it. Now, if you don't like something, you want to tell me, go right ahead. But that's your problem, not my problem. That's your problem. You got to deal with it. I'm not going to change the way I look because you don't like how I look. You know what I mean? And that's what I've learned in this industry. You got to have thick skin, but you also just need to realize that that person at home, it doesn't matter. I've worked so hard in this field. I've built up my career. That someone at home that doesn't like my outfit, that's not my problem. Your problem, right? But it takes a while for people in our industry to think about that, right? Or if they don't like something that I ran on Alabama or Auburn, or I gave 10 seconds more to Auburn, people will literally email me and be like, you ran a longer soundbite than the Alabama or Auburn soundbite. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I'm just not going to respond, or I'm just going to be like, just, go to your next day. Just go to bed. Maybe you're angry. I don't know. But I deal with it. It happens. It's part of the business, which is something that we have to deal with.
Now that you're at the helm, first female sports director, what's your leadership style?
I like giving my weekend sports anchor opportunities, and I think I did a pretty good job with that with Jamal, and I think I did doing a good job with it with Davis. I wasn't given a lot of opportunity when I was in their roles, and it stunted my growth for a little bit in this industry. But then I just started creating my own opportunities because I was so frustrated I wasn't getting the big opportunities. And when I wasn't given a photographer, and I'm not making excuses, but there was things that I was just like, well, if I'm not going to get this, I got to do something else and this, blah, 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 blah. But I think now my leadership role is just let your person do it so that they can grow, right? This is a stopping ground for a lot of people. And if they don't have big opportunities, they're never going to grow. They're never going to get out. They're never going to make more money. And I hope that Jamal and Davis have both seen that, go do this. You deserve it. Go kill it. You're going to do great. Put it on your reel. And I think that's my leadership quality. I think that's what you just asked me, which was what's my leadership quality?
Yeah.
It's giving people opportunities and helping them grow and getting them to a place where they want to be.
Real quick before we get out, a lot of people don't understand the uniqueness of WSFA. Before you ever got to WSFA, there were other women who came before you.
Yeah.
Talk about the quick relationship and what they added to you coming here.
Yeah, I've met Maria and I've talked to Haley over the internet several times, and those are the only two that I've met and have known. I've seen Kim in there and things like that as well in our Oasis, but both of them are incredibly talented journalists. I watch their stuff all the time, and I try to live up to what they brought to the sports department already. And taking this role, I was a little bit nervous when I got here because I was like, wow, people watch this station a lot. So I had to live up to everything. Maria and Haley are incredible, and I thank them for always hitting me up and encouraging me. They're a great support system, and I'm so happy that they came through this department.
Listen, thank you so much for coming through to do this podcast with us today.
This is cool.
Listen, there's an old adage that says a rising tide lifts all boats.
Wow.
Okay? And I'm so grateful because the tidal wave that you have brought to WSFA, you're doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
So I just thank you for that, understanding the history of WSFA, but not allowing them to put you in a box that you've brought your own swag to it.
Yeah.
So, Rosie, continue to do what you're doing. Listen, we're going to be there to support you.
Thank you.
South Central Alabama is a lot better having you on the anchor desk doing sports than we ever were. So thank you so much. Continue to do what you're doing. Hey, listen, for those of you who are watching this podcast, stay tuned. We'll be back. The question is, we have more episodes that's coming because we want to enlighten the culture and we want to get smarter together. So join us. Hey, make sure you hit that subscribe button and continue to help this podcast to grow. May God bless you. May God keep you. That is our prayer. Y'all take care.